been in some places a violence, and in some places ballot papers and ballot boxes have been stolen by people. Whereas we have been telling them that there is violence being perpetrated by the UPND cadres, they have done nothing. In certain places, the police have been standing by as these cadres do these deeds. Now, one of the things that we wish to state is that if there is violence in some of the polling stations, you do not need to suspend the counting all over the country. You can make sure that you deal with each polling station on a case-by-case basis. And at the same time, there is no need to say that you are suspending the counting. The counting can still go ahead in those areas which have not been affected by ballot papers being stolen. We therefore demand that this order that they've made be withdrawn immediately. We have also noted that this has come about because of the low turnout which is there in southern and parts of Barotseland, and the idea they have is that they will now start to change ballot papers, start introducing the pre-marked papers, and infuse in wrong results. That is the aim. If this is not the aim, why can they not immediately state which are the particular polling stations where they have got these problems, so that those are looked at in isolation? We have also gotten information that in certain constituencies, such as Nchanga, Chiralabombwe, and Ndola Central, because favored candidates of theirs and important candidates to them have lost those elections, they are trying to put this together so that they can change the results, in spite of the fact that the results were announced officially at the polling stations in those areas last night. But in this confusion, they intend to change that to save those of their members, important members, who have lost elections. Now, they are also intending to move the ballot papers and ballot boxes from the polling stations and deliver them to the various council secretaries at central places. A good number of the council secretaries have been instructed to be part of the process of changing the ballot papers and infusing in the wrong ballots. Now, that is the reason why they're asking that the agents go home, and they're telling them that they'll only be needed when the counting resumes. So our message to the polling agents, to the observers, is that they should not let those ballot boxes and ballot papers go out of their sight. Because immediately they go out of their sight, that is when the rigging is going to begin. And also, we wish to tell all of those who have already got the gen forms signed by everybody that they must make sure they secure those properly and let us have them, so that if there's any changes they attempt to make, those gen forms will show that there's been change of what had actually happened. Now, in certain places, such as in Zambezi, the agents tried to withstand the pressure they were receiving and stay at the polling stations. And they told the officials that we are not leaving the ballot boxes. And the authorities came and tear gassed them to move them away. Now the question is, if you want to have open, transparent, fair elections, why do you resort to tear gassing even agents who are not being violent, are merely stating that our job is to look and observe, so we are staying here and looking and observing, and you tear gas them to leave? It shows that there is something which is not right that they are attempting to do. I'll now hand over to my colleague, Honorable Chisanga, to add and also state what our demands are in this matter.
State Councils, thank you very much for an opportunity to also just sum up what our concerns are and what our demands to the ECZ and to other stakeholders are. Now, first let me recognize the presence of all the senior members here of the Tonse Pamodzi Alliance, and let me thank them for franking us as we speak to the nation about matters that we think are very important and that lie at the very core of the electoral process that we are undergoing right now as the Republic of Zambia. In buttressing what State Council has said, I wish to first make a remark that this is a very dark day in the electoral process of this country. For the first time, we're experiencing an electoral process that is being frustrated by one of the players in the electoral process. In fact, the major player in the electoral process. Everything that is happening in this electoral process starts and ends with the Republican president. We have always argued that the Republican president is supposed to be the protector of the Constitution. He is supposed to carry out the most honorary responsibility of making sure that everything that happens in this country is in accordance not only with the Constitution, but with every other piece of legislation that applies to what we are doing as a nation. The leaders that I'm sitting with here recently lamented the presence of defense forces in the management of these elections. For the first time in this country, we are now having not only even regular army, but we are having commandos to be the ones who are managing these elections. At the National Toteling Center, where we have been the last 24 hours, there's nobody else but the commandos who are standing there in red berets, managing, as it were, the electoral process. What has happened to the cherished tradition that we've had, where the election is managed by the police, the election is managed by the ECZ, and the election is managed by monitors and stakeholders who are participating in the electoral process, like political parties like ourselves. What we saw yesterday was not only frightening, but it actually stood against every known principle of a free, fair, transparent election that has got integrity in it. You don't bring in the army to come and stand in the electoral process, in the electoral management center, when there's no semblance of violence anywhere. Yesterday, nobody could have spoken about violence. We woke up today with a story that because of violence, the ECZ is now suspending the counting of votes. This is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. In 2021, when the UPND started killing members of the Patriotic Front, the Republican president at that time, President Edgar Chagwa, may his soul rest in peace, decided to suspend or to advise the ECZ to suspend the counting of votes. The UPND woke up in uproar and they demanded that there should not be suspension of the counting of votes, even when people were being killed around the country. The president complied with the demand that the UPND put in place. The Law Association of Zambia issued a statement where they demanded of President Edgar Chagwa that if indeed there were any aspects of violence anywhere in the country, it is only in the area where there was violence that should have instructed, or they should have recommended to the ECZ to suspend the counting. They demanded that there should never be any nationwide cancellation or suspension of counting of the votes. But this is happening at a time when the nation is now being threatened by the presence of armed forces in the election, by the absence of regular police in the election, by the presence only in the National Torturing Center of skeletal staff in these elections. What we expected when we went into that Ngungwishu Conference Center yesterday was to find all the commissioners sitting in front and addressing the nation like they always do. But we only saw 3 of them. And you could tell with suspicion that these are the only 3 that are at the forefront of trying to make sure that they mess up this election. This morning, our colleagues were in there who were accredited, because some of us were still chasing up the issues of these sporadic incidences of violence when this announcement was being made. Our colleagues can swear on an oath that before the ECZ came to the public and made this announcement, they had a consultation between themselves and the UPND. So it is very, very clear that this instruction to suspend this counting of votes has not come from the ECZ. It has actually come from the UPND. Now, this is extremely awkward. Why? Because wherever you have had any aspect of violence in this country, these sporadic incidences of violence that we've had, be it in Kasama, in Chizabombo, in Chawama, in Kanyama, even in Monza itself, it is the UPND cadres who are beating people. It is not the other opposition political parties. It is the UPND cadres, when they have realized that they've lost this election, they have started, instigating some sporadic incidents of violence to justify this decision to suspend. In Chawama constituency, it is UPND cadres who went and stole ballot papers, ballot boxes, committed an armed robbery to steal ballot boxes at a polling station. If the ECZ is an independent habit of these elections, they should have recommended to the police to search for these criminals who stole ballot papers. But they didn't do anything. Okay? In Kanyama, our agents were beaten right in the polling station. They were put out of a polling station, assaulted. Some of them are in hospital right now. They know they are silent. They have mentioned their silence to the police. The ECZ, if it was an independent habit of these elections, they should have gone to arrest, or they should have called for the arrest for those assailants who are actually known. There's a Mr. Tembo right now who is in Monze General Hospital, who was badly assaulted, is in the intensive care unit. He knows the people that beat him up. If the ECZ was trying to manage these elections independently, they should have demanded that those assailants who assaulted Mr. Tembo, to an extent where he is now on life support in the ICU, there should have been some arrests of some sort before cancelling the counting of votes in those areas that are affected. Now, we are sitting here with a blanket cancellation. At the time when the ECZ has failed, in fact, the ECZ has shambolically managed these elections, right from the time of the campaigns and now to the management of the counting of these votes. What the ECZ is not aware of is, in fact, they are aware of it. They know that every agent that was in the polling station has these results. The whole nation knows where these results are. In fact, we are sitting with information ourselves. Even the UPND are sitting with the same information that this election has already been won by Brian Mundubire and Makebi Zulu. That these elections, all the places where they have announced victors, apart from those who won by fluke, those where there was no competition in the constituencies in Southern Province, that the only MPs who won for the first time an election without being contested. But wherever there's been contest, the results that we are sitting with are showing clear that the opposition has won these elections. Now, it makes no sense for somebody to begin to make these kinds of announcements as ECZ that they're going to cancel, the computation of these elections. At the backdrop of this decision to suspend the counting of the election, the UPND has released a fake PVT result. They have put into circulation a fake PVT result that shows that UPND has won this election. Zambians, your election is being robbed in broad daylight. Your voice is being subjugated right now in broad daylight by these people who don't know what democracy means. It was your democratic right to wake up at 04 to go and queue up and remain on those queues until 19 hours until you cast your vote. And in keeping with the spirit of Zambians that we know you for from 1991 when we started our multi-party politics, you went back home and started waiting patiently for a trusted Electoral Commission of Zambia to count these votes and announce them. Immediately the results started coming. It showed clearly that the party in power has lost power. And now they want to make it very difficult for you, for your voice to be heard by choosing the leaders that you would like to go to parliament, the leaders that you want to put in State House. This is your voice, Zambians, that is being drowned by the UPND. This is your voice that is now being drowned by the connivance of UPND, the ECZ, and the Zambia Army, sections rather, of the Zambia Army, not the whole Zambia Army. We know how disciplined our defense forces are. But there are some within the defense forces that have chosen to be hired by the UPND to subjugate this election, to frustrate these elections and annoy the Zambian people so that you can go to the streets and demonstrate against what the UPND is doing. There is no justification for the UPND to cancel this election, the counting of these votes. No justification at all. In fact, now, in collaboration with the leadership that is here, we want to recommend to our PVT teams. We've got 2 PVT teams that have been following these elections, real time, and they have the results. To counter the fake result that UPND has now made public, we are going to instruct our PVT team to also release those results so that you Zambians can see for yourselves who has won this election. And at that time, you need to come and make your voice known on what you would like to do going forward as a nation. But in doing that, we want to make an earnest call on the ECZ. Firstly, we reject the suggestion that we can suspend the counting of votes. It is unjustified, it is unconstitutional, it is illegal. And by the precedent that was set by the ECZ in 2021, when President Edgar Chagonu wanted to suspend the counting on the basis of death of more than 5 people on that day, the UPND came and said, you can't cancel the counting. We demand that the same ECZ does the same thing. Nobody has died right now. What we have established is that it's only the UPND. You know, you can't instigate your criminals. You can't send your criminals in public to go and commit serious crimes and then use your powers under the law to suspend an election that you have lost. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. So we want to make a call on the ECZ that based on what happened in 2021, they must go back right now and make a reversal of a decision they had made and continue the counting of votes. We call upon all our agents countrywide, those who are sitting with Gen 20 forms. We know that today you wanted to go to Kitwe Civic Center to go and hand over the Gen 20 forms, to the returning officers. You were stopped by the commandos. The commandos are not the ones who are voting in this election. They are not the ones who are picking the leader that Zambians want. It is you, the Zambians. So that decision by the commander to prevent you from entering the totaling center at a district level is actually unconstitutional. It is illegal. And we make an appeal to the Zambia Defense Forces, the Zambia Army, the Zambia Air Force, Zambia National Service. You have a constitutional mandate to defend this nation, not to tear this nation apart. What is happening now has consequences. The people who are sitting in their homes know who their president is right now. As we're speaking, they know. They're the ones who came to vote for this president. We know there are people that voted for the incumbent. We know that. But in terms of tallying these votes, it's very, very clear that Zambians have already made this resolution who they would like to continue to be their president. And even you, as Zambia Defense Forces, you have a constitutional mandate to respect the will of the people, because the will of the people is the voice of God. So you can't do it. We also call upon all patriotic Zambians to stand up and come and defend what is theirs. I know that the driving, what we are seeing here in Lusaka and on the Copper Belt, defense forces driving in armored vehicles around, is all intended to instill fear in your minds. But there's nothing to fear. This is an election. This is a calendar that is in the Constitution. They have had this 5 years mandate to run the affairs of the nation. They have come to the test right now, and they failed the test. Because you have been following what has been happening in this country for the last 5 years. And from what you have observed, you have made a resolution that these people are not capable of moving the country forward. And you came and decided what you want to do. Your vote was decisive. We have the record. It is up to you now to come and say what you'd like us to do going forward. We have professional bodies in this country. We have CSOs in this country. We have NGOs in this country. This is time for you to stand up as patriotic Zambians. Come and defend the Constitution. We all have a duty to protect this Constitution. One person cannot violate the Constitution and we all sit back in our chairs comfortably. There's no time for comfort in this country right now. There's time to be decisive and to move the country forward. We have resolved that we are going to engage the ECZ. And we are calling upon all our leaders in all the districts. Please begin to marshal those Gen 20 forms. Have them on yourselves. That is the only evidence of where the poor is sitting right now. We know that they want to use a section of these defense forces to try and vary what you decided yesterday. It is up to you to keep the evidence on yourselves and ensure that you bring it to the leadership so that going forward we can take a decisive action on how we're going to deal with ECZ should they insist on continuing to participate in this quest to violate your rights. We want to call upon the monitors. You are here. Like the President, Brian Munduvire, said, elections are not determined by the day you go to vote. Elections are a process. You have been here, you have seen the campaigns. You have been here, you have engaged, even us, and we've spoken to you. We have raised concerns even before about what is going on in the country. Now, this is the darkest hour, like I said earlier, on what is going on in the country. You were here to monitor, but even in monitoring, you can make recommendations. The elections have been violated in this country. The rights of Zambians have been violated by the ECZ, which is supposed to manage the elections, and the UPND, which is supposed to be competing in this election. It is up to you, to recommend to us what action we are going to take to maintain peace in this nation. We pride ourselves as a nation that is an example of peace on the continent of Africa. We've had so many elections in this country, and those elections have been decided by the vote. Only the vote. And people before have lost elections. Gary Kombo was standing in this Tatani Center in 2021 and making a call on President Edgar Chagorungu to just call his elder brother, or younger brother, and tell him, young man, I've lost the election. I think now the bells have come tolling on the doors of President Daga in the Ichilem. It is now time for him to do what his friend did, and respond to what the Zambians have said. Make a phone call to Honorable Brian Munduvire. He is a decent individual. Make a phone call to his Vice President, Makebi Zulu. These are law-abiding individuals. Let them know. Let them assure you that they're going to look after you. Because that is what democracy is all about. Make that call and speak to them just like it happened at the time when Edgar Lungu was in that office where you are currently sitting. This poll has already been decided. Okay, we want to finally call upon, Zambia National Service, the police, and defense forces. You know what your constitutional mandates are. You know where your boundaries start, you know where your boundaries end. This is not an election that can be policed by the Zambia army. Far from it. The police must not abdicate its responsibility. We know we have lived with a very unprofessional police for the past 5 years. We know that. Everybody knows that. That's why the people have written you off as a police. But maybe you've got time to salvage your image this time. Come out in the open and defend what is right. Come out in the open and defend the decision of the people. These people suffered. And the way God loves this country, it was supposed to be hot yesterday. It was cool. And they went and stood on those queues the whole day. Some of them did not even have food. We have reports here of polling stations that was opened at 17 hours. Unprecedented in this country. We have reports here of a polling station which up to the time we are speaking to you now, Mufuchani polling station has not been opened. This is how Zambians respect the law. They never went out there to riot. They are waiting for you as this is to explain why that polling station was not opened up to this time when I was speaking to you. There are polling stations in Malota that were opened at 17 hours yesterday. This is how Zambians respect you, Mrs. Mwangalazaromis, Mr. Kasaru. This is how Zambians respect you. Today you have a challenge to return that respect that Zambians give you by making sure that the voice is not subjugated because you think you have a duty to protect the political status quo that we're living under. The owners of this country have rejected this political status quo. They have given this government a 5-year mandate. The 5-year mandate has come to an end. It is now time for us to change guard, put somebody else in this office of the president and vice president. Cabinet is going to be reconstituted. We have results already. We know the MPs who have won. Okay. In fact, now the president of Tonse, Pamodzi has made a demand on all you members of parliament who have won. Please be in the forefront of defending this vote. Because even your vote is going to be stolen. What is happening in the polling stations now is an attempt to manipulate even the vote that you've already won. Don't go out there celebrating. You have a duty to protect this vote. You are the first persons that are supposed to protect this vote. People are only going to follow you if you can show leadership at this time. So yes, you have won the elections, but please stay in those polling stations and protect your vote. The Zambian army are just but human beings. Once the right thing is done, they will follow the right thing. This is the country that our forefathers fought for, and we've remained peaceful for the past 60 years. There is no way we can lose peace at this time. because of one political group. There have been other political groups. Some of them are even more powerful than this political group we have. UNIP was a very powerful political group, but it gave way when the right time came. MMD stayed in these offices for 20 years. It gave way. The Patriotic Front, which has been decimated by the UPND, was in office for 10 years. But when the right time came, they gave way. What is different today? Mingalatos have failed because the number of people is big. Mingalatos have failed because God has a plan for this nation. And just join us in implementing the plan for God going forward, because peace must prevail in everything that we're doing. May God bless this country. Thank you very much.
I'm proud of myself.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you very much.
Very proud. Well,